I second that. Congratulations to all of you for getting here today. My name is Candida Steele, and I'm a judge on the U.S. Civilian Board of Contract Appeals. I hear government contract cases across the country. And to my right?
I'm Rick Hardy, one of the Hardy Boys. And I'm professor and chair of the Department of Political Science at Western Illinois University. I teach constitutional law, and I've been involved with this program since 1987.
I'm Fred Ensel. I'm an attorney with the Justice Department.
Great, and so this large audience knows what we're talking about today. I'll read the question. I'm sure you all know it's number 3 in Unit 4. Congress is the only national legislature in the world whose members are elected both separately from the executive branch and entirely from single-member districts. What are the benefits or advantages of this arrangement? What might be the advantages of mingling executive and legislative powers, such as in the British parliamentary system? How about the disadvantages? Why has the creation of congressional districts been controversial throughout American history? You may begin.
In creating a government, the framers struggled to create a legislature that will represent various interests. As a result, they created a legislative branch that was separate from the executive branch and provided for single-member districts. An advantage of our system is the ability of members of Congress to more accurately serve the needs of their constituents. For example, members of Congress are able to secure federal appropriations for projects in their state and district. However, single-member districts often encourage unnecessary earmark and pork barrel spending in Congress, and can promote interests of specific district over national interest. In contrast to an at-large voting system, single-member districts can benefit the minority by allowing a fair chance of gaining representation.
Another advantage of single-member districts is that they ensure that every geographic region of the United States is represented. Also, the system of single-member districts allows for the constituents to check their representatives in every 2-year election. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 1. Another advantage of the separation between the legislative and executive branch is that by electing members of Congress separately from the executive branch, the system allows for the possibility of a divided government. Thus, increased dissent and discussion serves as another benefit of our system. Each branch may scrutinize the actions of the other, reducing the risk of tyranny. As argued by James Madison in Federalist 51, ambition must be made to counteract ambition, and each branch can check and balance the power of the other.
The founders called upon Montesquieu, who wrote, "In the spirit of the law, there can be no liberty where the legislative and executive powers are united in the same person." One main advantage of the British parliamentary system is the efficiency and effectiveness of government. The expediency inherent in a parliamentary system reduces the risk of gridlock between the executive and legislative branches. In contrast, under our presidential system, gridlock over budget reform in 1995 shut down the federal government for 21 days, leading to the furlough of 800,000 federal employees. In a parliamentary system, the election process is simplified because the prime minister is elected directly from parliament. However, an advantage of our system is that, in Congress, and particularly in the Senate, the deliberative process facilitates increased minority viewpoint.
Similarly, the vote of no confidence in Parliament is initiated by the opposition in hopes of weakening the government. In the United States, congressional districts have been controversial since their first appearance under the 1842 Apportionment Act. This act mandated congressional districts according to the population of a state relative to the entire country after each decennial census. Some states initially refused to create congressional districts pursuant to the Apportionment Act because they felt the power to create congressional districts was reserved to the states under the 10th Amendment. Later, Reynolds v. Sims in 1964 held that districts with unequal sizes violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Today, gerrymandering fuels the controversy surrounding congressional districts.
When gerrymandering for racial purposes was prohibited by the Voting Rights Act of 1965, many states began affirmative gerrymandering intended to address historic discrimination. In Shaw v. Reno, 1993, the Supreme Court deemed dominantly racial gerrymandering a violation of equal protection under the 14th Amendment. In Davis v. Bandemere, 1985, the court held that redistricting plans that benefit one political party over another are not sufficiently adverse to violate equal protection. However, the Supreme Court dismissed the case Vieth v. Jubileer, 2004, holding that the judicial branch could not set standards for justiciability in political gerrymandering cases. Justice Kennedy, in his concurring opinion, wrote, "The object of districting is to establish fair and effective representation for all citizens. When politicians set aside their own differences, this vision can become a reality. We are now open for questions.
Thank you, and if I can first apologize to you all for not asking you to identify yourselves, if we wouldn't mind starting with that.
Something about the time.
We didn't use it originally,
No,
so
wait, the time is, oh, okay.
go ahead and introduce yourselves.
Hello, my name is Juan Garcia Gonzalez, and I'm a senior.
Thank
I'm
you.
Sylvie Lerner, and I'm a junior.
I'm Jack Forbes, and I'm a junior.
I'm Colette Kendrick, and I'm a junior.
And I'm Elliot Mamet, and I'm a junior, and this is our teacher, Mr. Mark Talhofer.
Great, hi. And did you start the timekeeping when I said you may begin or earlier? Then we'll give you a little extra time for giving us your names. Thank you very much. If you'd start,
Sure.
Brett.
And right after the Bay of Pigs, President Kennedy brought in the CIA director, and he said to him, if we were in a parliamentary system, I would have to resign. But this is a presidential system, so you're going to have to resign. What causes those two different results in the two different systems? And which of those systems in this regard do you think is the better one?
Well, in a parliamentary system, the prime minister is a direct part of the legislature. So he's required to have a government made up of a coalition that made up of people who are actively supporting him. Now then, the opposition party can call for a vote of no confidence, which means that they can dissolve, which means they can call into question whether or not the prime minister has enough votes to remain prime minister. And this sort of situations occurred in the past, but it was not applicable to Kennedy in the Bay of Pigs because he has a 4-year term as president.
In the presidential system, when the founders were writing the Constitution, a delegate from South Carolina said because of George Washington, the executive branch is more separate and close to the Congress or the legislative branch. And an advantage of the presidential system is that a president can veto a bill that he wants, but then Congress, if they don't approve of this, they can override it with 2/3 majority under Article 1, Section 7, Clause 2.
But I think an advantage of the presidential system is that since the president can be in a different party than the majority in Congress, he can use his veto power under Article 1, Section 7, Clause 2 as a check on Congress, and therefore it further defines the checks and balances.
Thank you.
Members of Congress are they supposed to represent their state or their district or the American people? What would be the rank order you would think that they would represent?
There's a difference between philosophies of members of Congress, whether they serve as a trustee or a delegate. In my opinion, a congressperson, above all else, represents their moral conscience. But they're not elected to serve from the country or from their state or from their moral conscience. They're elected to serve districts and their constituency in those districts.
I believe that members of Congress, primarily the House of Representatives, they are elected by the people, by their constituents in their districts, so they have the primary responsibility to represent the people who elected them into their district. And this was seen with Senator Shelby from Alabama trying to represent his constituents by placing 79 holds on President Obama's nominees to try to get an anti-terrorism center in his state so that there could be 1,500 jobs in Mobile, Alabama.
As we see in the United States, there are two houses in Congress. We have the House of Representatives and the Senate. The House of Representatives is under Article 1, Section 3, and Section 2, and the Senate is under Section 4, or Section 3. And during the Philadelphia Convention, they had the New Jersey Plan and the Virginia Plan. Under the New Jersey Plan, they came up with 2 senators, so that each state would have representation. Congressional districts have members.